let's get on to our first topic. All right. So, look, The Flash.
Yes.
What a monumental failure. So obviously, well, I mean, it is, isn't it? Like, it just is. We, first week when it dropped, and it took not that much money. Obviously, everyone does not everyone, but a lot of people do box office roundups. Some people are like, oh, it's not too bad. Some people are like, it's awful. And those that said it was awful were bang on the money. Bang on the money, because this is not good at all. It had a 73% drop week on, week out. I mean, that's just god awful. That's worse than Black Adam. And that movie went on to do nothing. It's worse than Green Lantern. It's awful. Now, it has crossed $200 million worldwide in a week and a half, because it was out on a Wednesday. And now, currently, it drops another 73% from the last Monday. So it will struggle to hit $300 million worldwide. So it only took in 1.66 million on Monday. Now, this is just a monumental failure. Monumental failure. And we also had a VFX artist coming out basically saying, well, literally saying, if some of the VFX looked like they were done in a week, it's because they were. So what do we think about this, guys? I mean, this is one of those things. I mean, this movie will lose Warner Brothers somewhere in the region of $300 to $350 million guaranteed now. This is a monumental failure of epic proportions, multiversal proportions, you might say.
Spaghetti. It's spaghetti verse.
So what do we think?
The spaghetti verse has been a failure since the word go, for at least for DC, and it's probably beneficial to them that they are now in a position where they have to let it go completely, since they're headed into a new era with Gunn. But I looked at the numbers and performance, and I'm thinking, okay, so Flash cost more than twice as much to make as Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was a colossal failure, a likes of which I haven't seen ever in movie history. It only made $132 million global in its run. It basically hit its apex and stopped. It was flat. Yeah. Dead as a mesa. I mean, it was, flat as Brie Larson, but at least performance-wise.
Right, there we go.
Or her ass anyway. But no, the point being,
I'll give you that.
But the point being is that Flash is going to do the same thing. It's already started to. At 1.33 million. That's not good. 73% fall off. I mean, very few films perform that poorly. And what it does is it shows me there's only going to be initial interest in these films, and that's it. Especially since you're going to have a large portion of the audience waiting to hear from, the brilliant minds of Mr. H or perhaps Mr. Tom Connors and other places, who are going to give you their opinion of the film before you see it, which will save you some money and a lot of time. And I don't see anything positive on the horizon for Warner Brothers, specifically about DC. But I think you're looking at a Blue Beetle film that is going to.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Well, I mean, the Flash has unequivocally bombed. What's next, I guess, when it comes to Warner Brothers. I mean, the Flash is such a huge failure, though. It's like worryingly bad. It's staggeringly big. But I wonder if there's anything that they could have done to actually prevent it being as terrible as it was in terms of its response. Do you think this is a movie? I personally think this is a movie that was always, regardless of what's happened to Ezra Miller, in the public domain, regardless of what's happened with them rebooting DC, I don't think this movie was ever going to do well. No one knows who the Flash is outside of, comic book fans, generally speaking. No one cares no one knows who Ezra Miller is. This is a niche movie within a niche section. Like, it was always going to bomb, I think, personally. I think they did. You got to remember, right? They did everything possible to get it out to normies. They ran an over 2-minute long Super Bowl trailer. It was poised, ready to hit the ground running with the normies, and they still couldn't do it. So I just think it was always destined to fail. Tom, you want to chime in there, buddy?
Yeah, as far as Flash goes, it's just this whole thing was built on, uh, a house or a foundation of a house that was shoddy at best. We were talking about this the other day, how, Snyder is really one of the main pillars of this whole problem to begin with. And now I know he had very little to do with this movie at the end of the day, but it really is kind of the culmination of all that crap.
Do you think? Because I still, well, I honestly just think it's the powers that be that greenlit this film. It should never have been greenlit. I wouldn't necessarily put that on Zack Snyder. I just
my point was I was getting to is, yeah, here's the thing, and I'm not saying that the studio or anybody else is innocent in this case. They made the decisions to change gears as much as possible, but at the end of the day, the reason nobody went to see this movie is because nobody cared after Batman v Superman. That was it. Nobody has really cared. That Wonder Woman and Aquaman were kind of flukes in that Aquaman had a very sexy leading man that a lot of women like, so a lot of them went to see it. And as far as Wonder Woman goes, she was long overdue for a movie. We should have got a Wonder Woman movie way back somewhere in the 90s or 80s at least. I mean, that's another part of it. We spent 10 years on this franchise, 10 years, and I've seen a lot of people go, well, it's this, that, it's the other. You could no, at this point, it's unsalvageable. The Flash was something that's been in production basically since 2014.
So long.
This movie was going to happen one way or another. The studio was kind of obligated to release it anyway, and that's what I've been trying to tell people. And I know Script Doctor and I talked about this again just recently, and I agree with a lot of his takes on it as well. As it kind of matches up with things that I'd heard, and I agree with his. You got all these other licensing deals that weren't in place for things like Batgirl, so that's how that was easy to just write it off. There wasn't back end deals. There wasn't foreign sales and other things that were already in place like there was for the Flash. We got to remember the Flash was originally meant to come out in 2016. Or 18 or whatever it was. This movie has been set to go out, and it's been shot and shot and reshot and shot and reshot and shot, and it's at the end of the day, this movie is just kind of both an example of what's wrong with DC and a glaring example of what's wrong with Hollywood in general. Because as much as we're focusing on the Flash, like you have in your title here, and I've said it time and time again, every single one of these blockbuster films this year has underperformed or flat out bombed, except for two. And the only two that you can point to are Mario Brothers and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 barely made its way into the black, right? And Spider-Verse has been a bit, it's overperformed as far as expectations as well. So I guess you could put a third one in there. Right.
Yeah.
But at this point, it'd be just to give it credit for bumping up to #1 spot again this weekend. But to me, it's almost like, yeah, it's cool to celebrate that. But we had a weekend where Culture, you pointed out, this is one of the worst weekends we've probably had. You'd have to go back a while with inflation.
74.
Wow. Before Jaws, before the summer blockbuster. There you go. Have we officially reached the end of that? I mean, is that where we're at here? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how we got where we are, but it's been a very, very long time. Adjusted for inflation, you have to go back to 1974 to have a weekend.
That's incredible.
And when you look at it overall, when you pay attention to what these are, at least as far as the domestic box office is concerned, you're looking at 2 consecutive weekends in a row where you're looking at record low box offices, and that's bad. That's a bad sign. I mean, we're headed into Indiana Jones and the Diaper of Depends real soon, and that's gonna seriously underperform. I can't believe I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong. Am I seeing this $60 million number correctly? That it could be on the low end for Indy's domestic open here.
I can believe that.
That's what they've been saying for the last 2 weeks. Culture.
Yeah. Well,
and it hasn't moved.
Yeah. I mean, bringing it back around to the Flash, I think what's interesting about this is if they had released it on Max, HBO Max, Because I mean, they're doing low estimates here of $150 million for marketing, right? Low estimate. That's a very low estimate, I think, personally. Yeah, that's $150 million for marketing. I think they would have made more than that. They would have done more than that in marketing. Well, I mean, the Super Bowl ad, we already know that they've been smashing out the marketing. But basically, the point is, if they'd released it on HBO Max, it would have lost less money.
Well, and again, I think Tom was pointing out that we know for sure that the production cycle started way back in 2014. But somebody I know told me they'd already put it into development, trying to get something put together, pull together writers, directors, and all that, all the way stretching back to 2012 for a Flash movie. Whether it's
they've been actually 2009. You can go all the way back to and try and find the first time they started talking about Flash culture. To be honest with you,
yeah. And then when you look at that, and when they finally pulled it together in 2014, that's when they pulled in Lord and Miller.
I think 12 is when they flipped over to doing a Flashpoint story, because I believe that's closer to the time when that comic had come out.
Yeah.
But regardless, this is something that's just been.
I mean, it
was doomed from the start, and even Michael Keaton couldn't save it.
Yeah, I think, and the first time you saw it reported in the trades or in the press was early 2015. I want to say February or March.
2014, it was announced for this iteration. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just bonkers. How long it's been, and here we are with the finished product being the most disappointing thing that you could imagine for the budget. I mean, seriously,
awful.
Well, as far as they couldn't put it on HBO Max, that's the other problem to answer that question, because remember what happened to Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah,
and that's the whole reason they couldn't just shit can this movie either, is because of that movie. And what happened there is, besides the licensing and the foreign deals they had to spend out a bunch of money because of that whole fiasco. And I can't imagine they wanted to cut checks to. I'm sure Michael Keaton had a back end deal. I'm sure Ezra Miller had a back end deal. I'm sure Ben Affleck had a back end deal. They
ain't making any money on this, are they?
The only ones who probably didn't have a back end deal would be like Sasha Calle and a few of the newer people involved. You know what I mean? Like, those are the only people who probably wouldn't. Now, the beauty of this, though, with this movie losing this much money, they don't have to pay anybody anything now.
So I guess, I mean, maybe it's a toss-up. Maybe they actually end up saving a bit. Like you could say you could say that they've, they would have lost less money if it had been released on Max, but inevitably they would have had to have paid out a projected back-end deal to keep people sweet.
That's
now they're just taking the loss. They're just taking a loss. So maybe, I guess maybe it does work itself out.
And they can write it down as a loss. Yeah, because look at, examples like the original Batman. Jack Nicholson on the back end deal alone is still known to be one of the highest paid roles in Hollywood, because he's gotten over $100 million in back end deals on the original Batman. Yeah. And then look at the Joker, what a snafu that was for Warner Brothers. They lost out on a lot of that money because they didn't invest in it as much as the other production companies that did. So they didn't get to see nearly, maybe a third or whatever of that billion, maybe a fourth.
That's crazy.
Super funny. Well, look, couldn't happen to a better movie being such a loss as this. Oh, so funny.
And as far as leaking online, I don't think it matters. No, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're jumping ahead there. God.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were addressing it at the same time. My bad.
No. We'll talk about it. It is true, though. So the entirety of the movie was leaked on Twitter over the weekend. It was up there for a little while. Now, this is, it's a 2 hours, 24 minutes was uploaded. And it was apparently a pretty good cam copy, actually a good one. Now look, it's not, is this them trying to save, I don't know, some money on insurance, get some, I don't know, some form of an insurance thing, or almost like a tax write-off from that kind of perspective? Maybe, I don't know, but unlikely. I think
I don't think they can. I don't think there's
yeah, but it is funny nonetheless. It is super, super funny nonetheless.
If a pristine copy had leaked out a week before the movie, maybe you'd have an argument. This movie, no, it was dead on arrival.
Oh, it was gonna be dead anyway. To be fair, it was gonna be dead anyway.
DOA was definitely definitely going to be this film. But there's a lot of films like that this year, and that's why we're ending up with these level low box offices. I mean, this should have been a tentpole, and it wasn't.
Yeah.